so much, Rachel. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Leader Lunch Break, where we are pleased to welcome Calvin Williams. Calvin Williams was called to enter the Cleveland Police Department while a college student at Cleveland State University. It was almost 36 years ago that he joined the force and began serving in the neighborhoods of the city that he loves. He served in a variety of leadership roles, head of the SWAT unit, the vice unit, the fugitive unit, as commander of the 3rd District and deputy chief of field operations, all before being promoted to become the 40th police chief of the city of Cleveland. It's just a short 10 months later that the United States Department of Justice released its report that led to the consent decree. He was tasked with overseeing dramatic reforms under that consent decree, and the results have been impressive, to say the least. Use of force down 70%, civilian complaints down 50%, and a total overhaul in department discipline. It's often said that you can judge someone's character by how they behave when no one is looking. And I have seen him when he thinks no one is looking, mediating disagreements on the street, playing with children at rec centers, coaching youth football, and circulating among the visiting forces during the RNC. We are incredibly grateful for his years of service, overseeing 1,500 officers and 200 civilian employees. As he noted in his application to the great Leadership Cleveland class of 2017, all of us have a responsibility to speak out, and every stakeholder must take a step forward in addressing the problems that affect our region. And now to give you a retrospective on his roles of leadership and service, Chief Williams.
Oh, good afternoon, Marianne. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it. Excuse me. Well, I want to thank Cleveland leadership for inviting me to this. My experience back in 2017 with Leadership Cleveland was an excellent one, one that I definitely learned a lot from a lot of different folks with a lot of different backgrounds. And I hope during that session in 2017, that I was able to at least pass on a little bit of kind of what it takes, not just to be a police officer and a police chief, but to be a person that lives, works, and kind of breathes the city of Cleveland and trying to make the city better. So I appreciate all my classmates. I see by the list that a few are on the call today, and I appreciate their support since that 2017 class. This session that I was asked to talk about involves leadership. And I'm not an expert on leadership by no stretch of the imagination. I learned a long time ago as a kid growing up here in Cleveland from my mother, a single mother here in the city of Cleveland that raised 3 boys, is that, you always try to do the right thing for the right reasons, and hopefully it's at the right time, and people will see that it is for the right reasons. And that's the way I tried to lead the Cleveland Division of Police since 2014, is to make sure that we're making the right decisions for the right reasons, and hopefully that affects people's lives in a positive way, both police officers that are part of this community and the community at large here in the city of Cleveland. And our leadership staff with the Cleveland Division of Police kind of fell in line with that mantra, and that's what we and tried to do over the last 7.5 years in the city during some very difficult times here and there, but also some nice, festive, great times for the city and the people that live and work and play here in the city. I have no complaints about being a police officer over the last 35.5 years. I really don't. Of course, there's always things that you look at and you would like to go back and do, I wouldn't say differently, but to do better, to have better outcomes. But at the time, when you're making those decisions, when you're actually going through it, you do the best you can, and you try to make those decisions that you think are going to affect people in a positive way and that are going to have the desired outcomes. I'm not going to talk about leadership styles and things like that because I'd bore you guys to death, and I can see by the folks on the call, you've probably been through I don't know, a few dozen leadership seminars over the course of your careers and your time here in Cleveland. So what I do want to talk about is a couple things. One is cooperation and collaboration, and the other is, why are you in this? Why do you get in positions of leadership within the greater Cleveland community? Cooperation and collaboration. I think you can't have collaboration without having some kind of cooperation. And by that, I mean, for folks, organizations, institutions, individuals to actually collaborate, there has to be some give and take. There has to be, as Mary Ann stated a little earlier, some mediation sometimes. And people have to understand not every collaboration is going to result in 100% cooperation by all the parties involved. So I've tried throughout my career to be the collaborative person and to know that, even the chief of police doesn't have the greatest ideas out of the folks in the room. And I've tried to make sure that I listen to those folks in the room before making a decision, that I hear everybody out, and that we try to make collaborative decisions. Not all the time, because again, the buck stops with the person at the top, but to make those decisions based on that dialogue, that conversation, and based on the standards that you've set for your organization. So collaboration, cooperation have to go hand in hand. There are a lot of times when you get into collaborative projects with folks and everybody wants to see their part of the project succeed and be the part that kind of shines through that process. I experienced this in my Leadership Cleveland class. There are a lot of times when our different groups that we're broken into had kind of competing projects and ideas and ideologies going on. And sometimes your ideas and ideologies kind of took the day and became the consensus amongst the group, and sometimes they didn't. And that's the process of collaborating. Sometimes you had to cooperate to get things done, and your ideas, although you think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, at that time may not be. And you have to start cooperating with the group to actually get things done. So that's my little take on collaboration, cooperation. The other thing is, doing things for the right reasons, being involved in organizations and institutions for the right reasons. And Mary Ann read my little intro for my Leadership Cleveland application of why I wanted to do it. Mary Ann, and that was very true, but I was actually kind of voluntold by Mayor Jackson that I was going to Leadership Cleveland, which I don't fault him for. It was a great experience. I loved it, loved every minute of it. My classmates, I see a few on the screen now, we had a great time, and I learned a lot again. But I did want to see the differences in organizations throughout Northeast Ohio, throughout Greater Cleveland, and how they tackled the problems that those organizations are basically set up to handle. And I gained a lot from lawyers and CPAs and great leaders like the Admiral and a lot of other folks, Mike Parks. I could name a ton of folks that basically, throughout my time showed me that, there are a lot of ways to get things done, a ton of ways. And if your organization is set and rooted in a certain way, then you're always going to be bumping heads with things that happen here in the Greater Cleveland. And you're not going to progress, you're not going to grow, you're not going to evolve as an organization, and you're really doing your folks a disservice. And I see Heather, hi Heather, just logged on. But what I got out of this is that, I don't know, the old saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There are a ton of different ways to lead organizations and agencies and institutions. And if you're open to different ideas, which I was actually looking for during my stint in Leadership Cleveland, because we were and still are in that consent decree process. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work that we've already done, but I was really looking for some things that I can carry back, some little nuggets that I can take back to the Cleveland Division of Police in the city of Cleveland and make that process a lot better, a lot smoother, a lot easier, and to actually, as the mayor said when we started that process, make it part of the DNA of the Cleveland Division of Police and making this city better. And I got a lot of that. I got a lot of tips from a lot of folks on things that we actually instituted within our division, things that go to community engagement, things that go to leadership building. We actually have a law enforcement leadership class that we give every year within our organization. Before, we would send officers out all around the country to different seminars, like I'm sure a lot of you folks do. Now we have an in-house cadre of instructors that have been through the training, that are certified, and we do our own leadership training within the division. And I got that from a few folks at Leadership Cleveland in 2017, and also some chief seminars that I've attended over the years. But you have to have that. You have to have that in-house training and development of your personnel, your folks, to make sure that things continue as they should. So those are just a couple of things, but in it for the right reasons, doing the right things to help folks. And I've tried to live my life and my career over the last 35 and a half years to make things better for the people in the city of Cleveland, plain and simple. Better for the officers that patrol the streets and deal with a lot. And of course, better for our residents that live here day in and day out and deal with a ton of issues and problems. I'll close with this and then we can open it up for questions. When it comes to leadership and things like that, I try to pattern myself a little bit after one of the people that I've admired throughout my life and reading about them and seeing things about them. And one of their sayings was, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in times of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. And for me, you have to stand in the same place during both of those times. When things are challenging, you definitely have to stand strong. But when things are great, you also have to stand in that same cycle of leadership. You have to stand in that same cycle of how do you solve issues and problems, because good times and bad, there are issues and problems that come up. And you know, where you stand in both of those dynamics is where true leaders should be. And that's in the same place, if that makes any sense to you guys. You can't be one way when things are great and another way when things are terrible. You always have to be that steady person that's going to make decisions based on the parameters that you've set for yourself and your organization to lead them through good times and bad. So I'll end with that. And if Rachel wants to come back on, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Chief Williams, thank you so much. And we certainly have quite a few questions that have come in. So let's start with, as you reflect on your time on the force, what has been a most proud moment or a favorite moment for you?
Wow, a lot, Rachel. I don't know if I can synthesize it down into one or two. Overall, I'd say probably my proudest moments have been when not just members of the Cleveland Division of Police, but our city as a whole has risen to the challenge. When folks out there were saying, you can't do it, it's going to be terrible, you're not going to be able to be successful. And not just law enforcement, but the city as a whole, and also the people in it, have risen to that challenge and basically, you know, made liars out of folks. And the city has looked great. The people in the city has benefited from folks out in the neighborhoods, the folks, of course, downtown and other places around the city, and Northeast Ohio as a whole. Those have been a lot of my proudest moments.
And as you continue to reflect, and you've mentioned the importance of collaboration, has there been a collaborative experience where you look to as kind of your go-to example of how things can work well?
Wow, again, great question. A ton of them. I see one of my good friends, LaJean Ray from Fatima Family Center, on the call. LaJean and I have been together for a lot of years, with community projects in the Huff neighborhood. And I think what the division does, not only with Fatima, but I can name a ton of places around the city that we collaborate with, but what the division has done with Fatima and that relationship that was built over the past, I don't know, probably 15, almost 20 years, Leji, is an example of how, on the police community relations side, how things should actually work. It's a give and take relationship. Again, it's collaboration with cooperation. The Division of Police doesn't always get everything that we ask from Fatima Family Center, and neither does the Fatima Family Center, but we have a mutual respect for each other, and we know that, you know, everybody's trying to do good work for the community itself. So whatever there is out there that's an ask from either organization is immediately acted upon, and to the best of our abilities, we try to take care of that.
Now, coming out of this past fall, there's a new charter amendment, and curious your thoughts and feelings around it and how it might affect the department that you've just left.
I think I made my feelings known prior to the passage of issue 24. I didn't think it was, I won't say it wasn't a good idea. I didn't think it was good legislation, the way it was actually written. Mayor Bibb and I had a conversation about this after his election. We sat down for about an hour and talked about everything related to the Cleveland Division of Police and also issue 24. And my basic kind of answer to him about issue 24 is it has to be set up properly. It has to be set up where people actually, what's being asked from the Cleveland Division of Police and law enforcement throughout the country, where people actually trust the CPC to do what it's tasked with doing in a fair, impartial, unbiased way. And if that happens, then it will be successful. I mean, there are commissions all over the country, as most of you know. Those commissions are set up by the will of the people and by what I would call a call for change within a city. And we've been in that call for change since 2014-15, since we entered into the consent decree. But all those commissions are different, and those commissions have different functions. If this is set up properly by the folks in charge, Mayor Bibb and City Council, everybody else involved in it, then it will work here in the city of Cleveland. But it has to be set up properly. There has to be that trust throughout not only Division of Police, but the community, that it does exactly what it's supposed to do. So that's kind of my take on issue 24.
This question came in from Kurt Caracol, who says that you told him a long time ago that you wanted to convert the force from warriors to guardians. What were the roadblocks that got in the way of you fully accomplishing this, in your perspective?
Well, I don't think there are too many roadblocks. I think we're kind of well on our way to that. You know, Mary Ann talked about a lot of the stats, reductions in use of force, complaints, things like that, that have happened over the last, I'd say, 6.5 years, since right before the consent decree started till present day, till the end of 2021. And that's how an organization changes from a warrior mentality to a guardian mentality. You know, when I first became chief in 2014, I actually went to a police chiefs symposium in Atlanta, Georgia, in the spring of 2014. And there was former Commissioner Bratton from New York City. He was commissioner in New York City and then went to LA for a while. And now I think Bill's just out there doing what he does, probably talking about leadership, which he's very good at. But Commissioner Bratton talked about that warrior, from warrior to guardian mentality. And that's actually where I got that from in 2014 at that Noble Chief Symposium in Atlanta. And he talked about how we have been trained over the decades to be warriors. But we're not at war on the streets of our cities here. You know, some people may disagree with that, but we're not at war. And our officers aren't warriors. But there is a time and a place, and usually it's a small window, time and a place, where officers have to kind of put on that mantle of being a warrior. and protect themselves or others. But 99.9% of the time, we are being guardians to our community. And I think Commissioner Bratton talking about that kind of got a lot of chiefs and executives in that room to really start thinking about, oh, you're kind of right. You know, I was a police officer for almost 36 years. It would have been 36 years, February 24th. And I could probably count, I can count on one hand how many times I actually pulled my weapon where I thought I had to actually use deadly force. Out of almost 36 years. I mean, police officers pull their weapons all the time just to be ready and, you know, that kind of thing. But 5 times where I actually pulled a weapon where I thought maybe I'm going to have to, you know, use my weapon against this person that's doing something that's trying to hurt me or somebody else. And 3 of those times I was actually on the SWAT team. So, you know, SWAT only gets called out for the worst of the worst. The other 2 times, one of those times I actually had to fire my weapon at a person that was firing a weapon at me. And luckily, everything turned out. Nobody lost their life in that incident. And that person actually got shot by another officer. And I actually saw that person years later out in our community on a couple different occasions. He had some mental issues, and we actually talked a few times after that incident. So, you know, that warrior to guardian, you know, sometimes you have to be a warrior because you have to protect yourselves and others. But 99.9% of the time, we're already out there being guardians. Law enforcement is starting to see that more and more over the last 6 years.
As you look ahead, what do you see as potential the greatest challenges, but also the greatest opportunities for the Cleveland Police Department?
You know what, the greatest, it's probably the same, one and the same. The question and the answer are one and the same. The greatest challenge, I think, right now for the Cleveland Division of Police is the newness of what's here now. A new administration, different from the past 16 years. The passage of issue 24 with the new police commission. You know, the social justice movement that started back in 2020. Probably started a little before then, but actually came to the forefront in the spring of 2020. All that, I think, is a huge challenge to law enforcement here in the city of Cleveland, as well as other places around the country. But I also think that's kind of going to be the greatest asset. Change is good. Any organization that does not want to change is not going to be around for long. So I think that change that's coming, although it's going to be challenging, I think that the officers here in the city of Cleveland are up to that challenge because we've been in that change mentality and that change world since 2015 when the consent decree was actually signed and implemented. So it's kind of, you know, the question within the question, the answer within the answer. I think they're both challenges, but both good things.
So given the current challenges with workforce, what are the barriers to finding and keeping the best talent for the department, and how can those on the call help with the recruitment?
Oh, recruitment. And I want to start off by saying this is not, the challenge of recruitment is not unique to law enforcement or the public sector. I see stories all the time about, you know, businesses and entities all over the country that cannot recruit, hire, and retain the workforce that they need to do their jobs. For us, it really hasn't been a challenge until of late. We've met our recruitment goals over the last, I'd say, 4.5 years. We consistently put in academy classes, 2-3 classes a year, although we pushed for more. But there's only so many months in a year. And right now our recruit training is about 7.5 months from the time they actually enter the academy until they actually graduate from the academy and go out on the road. But there's about 4 months prior to that, that's our own onboarding process. That onboarding process used to be almost a year, and now it's down. But our biggest challenge is to make sure that folks still have the desire to serve their community. And I think law enforcement and the public sector is a great way to serve their community. And the folks on the call can help by encouraging people to actually sign up when public safety is recruiting. Because the only way, that prior question about, challenges and changes, the only way those things actually take root and come to fruition is that we get fresh new faces and ideas and ideologies into the mix to help grow that.
So as you referenced, our community has a lot of change coming in, a lot of new leadership in your department, in the city. What leadership advice do you have for those who are coming into their roles now?
Well, I talked to my folks prior to retiring here a couple weeks ago. I talked to some other folks that are incoming city government officials, and the advice I give everybody is take the time to get to know what's going on, to listen to the folks, not only that are doing the job currently, that have done the job in the past, and also the folks that are the beneficiaries of the service for those providers, be it law enforcement, be it parks and rec and snow that we've been talking about for the last couple days, be it finance. Talk to the folks that are actually there, that have actually done it, and then the people at the other end of that service delivery before you start to really make big decisions and really get a grasp on exactly how things work and how things should work. And then from there, you can kind of reverse engineer and actually come up with some great ideas that are going to be beneficial, both to the folks that have to deliver the service, as well as the end user of that service.
So very curious about what is next for you. What are you up to now that you have retired?
Nothing. I'm at home right now. Got up and got the kids off to school and had breakfast and kind of lounged around, and I thought I'd take a shower and clean up a little bit for you guys. I'm trying to grow my beard out. It's working on it. It's a work in progress. Again, I'm looking for some other volunteer avenues. Jean at Fatima knows that I'm available as soon as they open back up, but COVID has kind of made it a little tough. I'm really looking forward to getting back out in the community and actually just seeing what I can do to help folks in a volunteer capacity. So I know I got a lot of folks on the call that do stuff like that. Just give me a call. If I can fit in somewhere to either lend some advice or even just, be at a place a few days a week just to kind of help out with whatever you need, I'm available right now. I have time on my hands right now.
So we have time for one more question. And as you think about your time with the Cleveland Police Department, what do you most want those of us here on the call today to know about your time, your service, your leadership there?
Well, not so much my time and my leadership, but the men and women of the Cleveland Division of Police want to be the best they can for the people in the city. Of course, any organization that has almost 2,000 people, you're going to have stuff that happens. You're going to have people that aren't on that right track, that don't want to do good, but you have tenfold more people that do, and people that want to see this successful. People don't wear that badge and have that patch on their shoulder that says, City of Cleveland Division of Police to embarrass it. They want you to know that they're out there working for you and they're working hard for you. And as we've seen over the years, they'll actually lay down their life for you. So I just want people to know that, regardless of what you've seen in other cities, regardless of some of the things that we've even had happen here in the city of Cleveland, that's not indicative. Those negative things aren't indicative of the vast majority of the officers that wear that uniform day in and day out. They want to come out there and they want to help people every single day. Nobody wants to be on the news. Nobody wants to take another person's life. Even if they have to, they don't want to do that. So people just should support our police officers. Make sure that you say hi to them once in a while when you see them driving by or walking by, and let them know that you're there for them. Because trust me, they're there for you.
Well, Chief, we thank you for your time and insights today and for your service and leadership over the years. And I imagine that your inbox is going to be flooded with some opportunities to fill that time very soon.
All right. Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
true.
Appreciate it.
Very
Thank you, Marianne.
true. So,
Thank you.
Chief, I wish, I hope you have a moment to take a look at the chat. We will save it for you, but you've
Sure.
lots of great shout outs for many of the things that you've done under the radar to improve our community and to demonstrate that, yes, you lead collaboratively, but you also lead with tremendous humility. So I think I'll say the best was that you are a rock star. That was probably the comment that stood out.
Thank you, dear. Thank you.